Good morning. My name is Megan Edwards of Focus Communications, and joining me today is Nick Appleyard, TriStar Gold President, CEO, and Director. TriStar trades on the TSX.V under the symbol TSG. Nick, it's good to have you back on.
Good morning, Megan. Thanks for having me again today.
So today I'd like to discuss a recap of TriStar's year and have you provide an overview of what investors can look forward to from TriStar in 2023. But before that, could you please give our listeners a brief introduction to TriStar and your Castelo de Sonhos gold project?
Yeah, of course. So I'll just advance. I'll use the deck here a little bit to talk to. Everyone should always be aware of these disclaimers. We put them in there for a reason because we're trying to give you guidance on what may happen in the future, but a lot of things can impact that. So, but anyway, Castelo de Sonhos, it's the Castle of Dreams located in central Brazil in the southern border of Pará state. It is a gold deposit, gold paleoplacer, which means it's very ancient. It's 2 billion years old, very clean. These paleoplacer deposits are not numerically abundant around the world, but when they do get found, they're very large generally, and this seems to be shaping up that same way. We've been advancing it now for quite a few years, and we are at the PFS stage. That is now complete, and we are full speed ahead, like 100% focused on permitting right now. And hopefully that will be coming through as a highlight for next year.
So let's start with your year, with early 2022, where you announced a financing. Could you run us through that financing and the use of funds?
Yeah, for sure. We were chatting with Oramet, who we've known for a while, early this year, and they really liked the asset and said they would like to do a placement in us. And obviously we were going to be very excited and very keen to bring them into the team. So we did that in April this year. Really, the aim was just to give us more runway ahead of us, more funds to use to do a small drill program we did. But really, it's to get the LP, make sure we can get that permit with no restrictions so that we can do all the work we need to do to the highest standard rather than have to cut corners because of budgets on doing permitting, which is something you don't want to do. So that's what that gave us. That gave us the ability to put a first-class permit application in and follow up work with the authorities.
Now, the company started a 2,500 meter expansion and exploration drill program to test areas of higher grade extensions at the Esperança South, but you also have targets throughout the project for further upside. What's the upside potential not only around Esperança South, but throughout the entire project area?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's still a lot to find. Our focus has been pretty well Esperança South for the last few years as we've sort of honed down on this pre-feasibility study. I think we have something like 19 kilometers of outcropping reef conglomerate which hosts gold. Esperança South is maybe 6 or 7 kilometers of that. It's the most obvious area for us to start work, but there is so much more still to find. And also, as gold deposits evolve in their life, you do go from the really easy stuff that's sticking out of the ground and find the deposits or portions of deposits which don't outcrop. So we've still got to find all of those. We've got a couple of holes, tested some ideas, come up with some small hits to sort of prove the ideas are viable. So there's still a lot more to find, but in reality, as I said, we've got 19 kilometers of outcrop. Esperança South is 7 kilometers only of that, and there's a lot more there to do. Plus, it is a bowl, so it's all of that outcrop joins underneath. There's so much potential underground as well, so that it's going to be around for quite a long time, this deposit now.
And in more recent management and team news, Marcus Brewster was recently appointed as the new COO at TriStar Gold. Can you discuss a bit of Marcus's background and the value add that he brings to the team?
Yeah, for sure. So Marcus comes from operations. We came across Marcus a few years ago and reconnected more recently. But Marcus is a geologist and a mining engineer, a great combination, a rare combination actually, for someone to start work as a geologist, they go back to university, get a master's degree in mining engineering. So he's got, and he's worked practically on both sides in paleoplacer mines. So he ended up as the general manager of Damang, a large paleoplacer of gold fields in Ghana. He's worked at Tarkwa on the head of resources and reserves. He's worked at Tarkwa developing their mine planning, their mining techniques. So his hands-on operational experience right through from exploration geologist on paleoplacers, mining engineer, and general manager of the whole operation, which means government relations, community relations, staff management, is just, I mean, it's a perfect match. I mean, if we listed out what we would want in a chief operating officer, it would be Marcus. And the fact that he's got all of this experience in Ghana, but he's also worked in Brazil and he speaks Portuguese. I mean, it's just, it was a fantastic find for us. And, you know, and beyond that, it seems like a great guy, and he's melded well with the team. And yeah, we just couldn't be happier with finding him. And now, several months later, it's just getting better and better. So we're very excited to have him on. But I think what it means, the important thing to point out is when we do our bankable feasibility study and we get our permits, or when we're talking to the government about permitting and how the operation is going to be, you've got someone on the front line who can speak to the government in Portuguese and speak to the investors, saying, I've done this. I know exactly how to do this. This isn't theoretical study done by someone, you know, this is, you know, I'm an operator. You know, I can show you a photo of me doing this in West Africa. You know, so it'll bring a lot of credibility to everything we do from an operation sense, from how it's going to get built. So yeah, we're super happy with Marcus joining us.
So let's go to later in the year. TriStar announced the completion of the environmental impact assessment and applied for the prior license for the Castelo de Sonhos gold project. Could you run us through the significance of these permits in your development and what remains from the overall permitting process for the company?
Absolutely, yeah. So to submit the EIA, we had to complete the pre-feasibility study. You need a fair bit of the engineering work, the locations, details of the tailings dam, the processing plant, access roads, all, you know, the mines, obviously, the waste dumps. All that gets put into, I believe it's like a 1,200-page document. It's a big document. And that's the first step. Completing that is the first step of obviously getting the permits, but it's not just the mining engineering side, it's all of the baseline environmental work as well. So before we could complete that document, we had to go out and do, you know, 4 seasons or eight seasons in places of flora and fauna, hydrology, meteorology, archaeology, sociology, you know, the people who are actually living in the area now, are the indigenous populations in the area now, who are the people who live close to the project in a sort of area of direct impact, area of indirect impact. That was all defined, all goes into that document. So it's a lot of work to get it done. And that was submitted, I believe, last July. You know, I think typically they take 15 months, 12 to 15 months to do. We're on that timeline now. And, but once you submit it, it's not like you submit and it's hands off. You submit and then there is constant engagement with the authorities. So that's what we're in now. And if we can get this approval in Q3 of next year, it'll be fantastic, because that is the big permit. That's where the government goes, okay, yes, we're accepting your EIA. They'll give, you know, they usually approve it with conditions saying approval, but you need to do this and this and this before you can build. And there'll be some of that. Some of those we know are going to happen. We're already doing the work to answer those questions. But that's really the major environmental permit, which says, yes, this project fits and is appropriate for this location as it's designed. So it's a really big deal. Beyond that, then obviously we will be doing the, you need to get your engineering license to build it, which is called the installation license. In parallel with getting that license, we'll be completing the bankable feasibility study. So those two will sort of work in parallel with each other and actually feed off each other a little bit. As we get the conditions from the LP approval, that will feed into maybe aspects of how we have to design the final feasibility, final engineering for the project. That'll take another 12 months, 9 months, something like that afterwards. And then it's construction time. So it's, you know, we're sort of getting towards these details where, you know, it's becoming very, very real, very, you know, exciting. But it is a big change in the team, changing the operation from running by the drill bit and running by, you know, waiting on drill results every weekend, you know, see what's happening there, to these permits are going to drive the value. These permits are going to make it decide whether this project is worth a huge amount of money or very little. You know, internally we all believe it's a huge amount of money. There's no reason. We've got no red flags so far, which is really good. And it is really going well. You know, I was in Brazil a few weeks ago. We met some of the authorities down there, and you know, all the feedback is positive. They're very keen on the project, and I think that's because of its location. It's in a great location where you're not near an indigenous population. You're not in pristine jungle. You're in farming country, and it's like, I think everyone goes, okay, you can put a mine there. It's a good location for a mine.
So it's been a good 2022 then.
It's been very successful. It's been as we were planning. We've got that LP in. We're moving ahead. It's been tough from the market sense because that process, even though it's been very successful, doesn't drive a lot of news, doesn't drive a lot of investor excitement. But that investor excitement, should, if it's logical, start building up towards that Q3 approval next year, because that is a really big milestone, which will get attention of a lot of people. You've got 1.4 million ounces then sort of permitted, ready to get into the last stage before you build it. And there's not many mines around the world at that stage, at this scale, and with this upside potential beyond the 1.4 million ounces that we're permitting now.
Let's talk a little bit about next year to finish things up. Could you provide us with an overview of what investors can look forward to from TriStar in 2023 and any final takeaways you'd like to leave with our audience?
Yep. So 2023, we'll sometime in Q1, we'll produce a wrap up of the 2,500 meter program we did. That's there'll be hopefully something nice in there, but as I mentioned, it's not really. That was more a practical drill program for certain things that we needed, rather than something that's going to drive investor sentiment massively. I think towards the end of Q1, early Q2, we'll start getting news out of the permitting on how that's going. We'll have our public hearing. We'll have our SEMAS, the environmental agency, visit to the site. We get reports back from them at that point. And so we'll know if we're on track and it's going well. So that'll hopefully come out early in Q2, and then hopefully Q3 will be the permits, and that's really everything. So the idea is that myself and Marcus will get on the road and tell everyone about this as much as possible. Effectively from PDAC on, we'll be out telling the story, preparing the world for what's coming in this great mine.
Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Nick. Happy holidays, and we look forward to hearing more from TriStar in the new year.
Okay, thanks a lot for having me, and again, and Merry Christmas to you as well.